Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathashala. I am Dr. K.R. Ramamohan, Associate Professor, Head Department of Anthropology, Sikkim University. Today we are going to discuss a module on the evolution of tribal developmental policies and programs. This module is under the paper Indian Anthropology. Before we go and see what is this module about, let us see what are the learning objectives. To know the various tribes of India, to see the tribal development in India, to understand tribal policies and programs, to know the present scenario of the tribal development schemes. If we see the entire tribal scenario in India, graphically, it shows that there is some kind of increase in the tribal population. Since post-independence India, so when we got independence, and even today, in this year, there is a decadal growth of tribal population, and the whole population now stands at 8.2%. So the tribal population had showed a gradual movement towards urban areas since 1961. But still, the majority of the tribal groups and population lives in rural and forested zones and other remote areas. So according to 1961 census, there was only 0.8 of the total population of 30 million tribal population in urban areas. If we look at the entire tribal scenario in the country, Article 366, Clause 25 of the Constitution of India refers to the scheduled tribes specifically for the rights and the privileges. And these communities who are scheduled in accordance with the Article 342 of the Constitution clearly says that the President of India is the only authoritative personnel to declare that any community, if they claim that the scheduled tribe in accordance with the state and union territories shall be deemed fit to become a scheduled tribe status. So this article says that only those communities, not all the communities in India, who have been declared as such by the President through an initial public notification or through subsequent amending Act of Parliament will only be considered as scheduled tribes. No caste group can claim that they belong to scheduled tribe, because caste fall under different social category. Caste fall under hierarchy, but scheduled tribes do not have any hierarchy. Each tribe is independent of other tribe, and each tribe is distinctive in its own ways, be it their language or religion, economy. So in that sense, scheduled castes are different from scheduled tribes. And scheduled tribes have taken an important place in the Constitution of India. So let us see and understand how the developmental programs are being in place since independence. What were the schemes? What were the policies? Why did they need attention towards their development? And this has been a long debate. How should we develop the tribes? And what is development for them? If at all we want to develop them, what are the ways and approaches to develop them? In that sense, a 2011 census clearly says that there are 8.80% of scheduled tribes are spread across all the country, and some of the tribes are in the forested zones, Some tribes are at the foothills of the mountains, and some tribes are still in the plain areas. So hence, tribes are not restricted to only one geographical location. Scheduled tribes are spread everywhere, in every nook and corner of this country. So more than 70% of the entire scheduled tribe population concentrated in Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Orissa, Bihar, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal and Gujarat. And the rest of the states are very less, but most of the tribes are also concentrated in northeastern India, southern India, and even the islands of Andaman and Nicobar. So this stretch of land, you can see that scheduled tribes are being pocketed in every place. To reiterate the same point, that any social group which are traditional in nature and which have these primitive traits, who are cut off from the civilization, the mainstream civilization, that is, they are geographically isolated, maintaining unique and distinctive features in their cultural life, a tendency where they cannot mix with other communities, perhaps might have put them completely backward in economic terms, in developmental terms, with the rest of the communities in India. And they have been living for centuries together in this state of condition, deprived of many developmental things that are being catered to other communities. So at this juncture, the founding fathers of the Constitution were fully aware the status, the living conditions, the issues and the problems confronted by these indigenous groups, by these traditional groups, which are called as scheduled tribes. Therefore, they come out with certain special provisions which are enshrined in the Constitution of India to protect their dignity, to protect their identity, and simultaneously cater to the needs of their development. You cannot left like that down. So the constitutional framers thought in that way. Hence, there are some articles which are completely dedicated to the welfare of the scheduled tribes in this country. So the main safeguards of provisions include the provision of educational and economic interests, and to protect them, the domination and the exploitation and the social injustice done by the outsiders for these communities. So with that spirit, the Constitution provides the special representation and attention to elevate the poverty, to elevate the welfare of the scheduled tribes, both in the Lok Sabha and in the state legislative assemblies till 25th January 2010, where Article 330, 332 and 334 clearly states enjoining the setting up of the separate departments in each and every state, and exclusively a national commission at the central level in New Delhi to promote their welfare and safeguard their interests. And this has been enshrined in the Articles 164 and 338 of Indian Constitution. So the special provision for administration, that is tribal administration, and to take control of the scheduled areas and tribal areas, which are spelled out in Articles 244 in the both 5th and 6th schedules, and grant a special grant to support the individual state to meet the cost, to give these funds, financial support to the various developmental schemes taken by both at the central government and both at the state government, thus promoting the welfare of scheduled tribes so that these scheduled tribes can raise themselves to some extent on par with the other social groups in each and every state. And this granting of financial aid is specifically spelled out in the Article 275, which guarantees that the government will take care of their welfare. So to effectively deal with the crimes which are meted against these innocent and ignorant communities, there are two special laws which protects the violence from the outsiders or the non-tribals or the atrocities in any form, in any degree. To prevent them, there is the protection of the Civil Rights Act in 1955 and the prevention of crime and atrocities on scheduled tribes and scheduled castes. Prevention of Atrocities Act in 1889 were enacted and have been in place. Anyone who violates and who creates violence to these people were severely punished. At one level, the government is interested in safeguarding, but the another level, the government is also interested in promoting their well-being by giving many provisions so that they can take control of their own terms. So in these lines, the special economic development of the scheduled tribes and the protection against their exploitation has been an important agenda for the governments, all types of governments, through all these years. So with this, there is a special assistance to tribals in the form of tribal sub-plan. It is also called TSP. And these tribal sub-plan are specifically catered with the help of special central assistance through the Ministry of Tribal Affairs to the respective state governments to promote their welfare in regional level, in various social aspects and economic aspects. So, the special central allowance is primarily meant for the family-oriented income generation schemes in the sectors of agriculture, horticulture, sericulture, animal husbandry, and any other thing which directly benefits for them. Hence, a part of this special central assistance, which should not exceed 30% of the income, is also permitted to be used for the development of infrastructure and any other activities which promote income generation for these tribes to stand on their own, to take control on their own, so that by avoiding dependency and waiting for a change. The special central assistance, which is catered to the needs for the development of scheduled tribes, is specifically seen in context with to promote welfare for all these deprived scheduled tribes. So, special central assistance is intended to be an addition to the state plan efforts. In that sense, every state has certain plans and programs and policies for the development of scheduled tribes. But this is an additional grant which is given by the central government to supplement, to augur the tribal developmental programs in each and every state. And this has come through a strategy called the Tribal Subplan or the TSP. So the objective of this strategy is twofold. One is the socio-economic development of scheduled tribes and the protection of these tribes against any kind or any form of exploitation by anyone, particularly by the non-tribal people or by the government. So, special central assistance primarily funds schemes, projects exclusively for the economic development of the scheduled tribes. This special central assistance is released specifically for the economic development of the scheduled tribes through the integrated tribal development projects, ITDPs, where large number of tribal populations are residing, or if any geographical area which consists more than 50% of the population are scheduled tribes, this integrated tribal development project is in place. And again, this special central assistance is also channeled through MADA, also called as Modified Area Development, where the area needs to be developed because the area has more than 50% of tribal pockets which are residing in pockets. And these pockets need an urgent attention. Or if the population exceeds 5,000 or more, in that sense, central government is fully committed to cater the funds through these schemes. So within this gambit of all the scheduled tribes, where each tribe has different levels of development, where one tribe is placed in such way, another tribe is placed in, there is a segregation among the scheduled tribes or the primitive vulnerable tribal groups. Earlier, these tribals are called as primitive tribal groups. And these primitive tribal groups, now it is called as particularly vulnerable tribal groups, are identified as isolated communities, more isolated than the general scheduled tribes, characterized by low level population, very few, and they are still hunting gathering stage. There is no agricultural at all or even other modes of livelihoods, absence of technology, and extremely low levels of literacy, in a sense that there is no one literate. Hence, it constitutes or falls under the particularly vulnerable tribal group. And if you look at in India, there are almost 75 such tribal groups spread across all parts of India. Northeastern states, North India, Central India, South India, and even in Andaman Nicobar Islands. Now, due to the historical process of time, some scheduled tribes are being displaced in search of livelihoods, in search of labor, in search of drought conditions. We can see there is a lot of displacement, or that particular tribal area might have displaced due to construction of a dam or a project, or been evacuated for some kind of a natural resource. So for these kind of people, there are certain provisions. The assistance for margin money for loan programs, tribal finance, tribal corporations in the states departments, MMLPs. And again, there are specific projects which caters to the specific proposals which state governments proposes and have been sanctioned. So within this tribal development programs, we need to understand a special program called Large Scale Agricultural Multipurpose Societies, or called LAMS. So Large Scale Agricultural Multipurpose Societies, or LAMS, were organized for the first time way back in December 1971 on the recommendations by the BAWA team appointed by the Government of India to look into the credit problems in most of the tribal areas. So according to its framed objectives, these societies are expected to provide all types of credit, including consumption credit through single window, the intensification and modernization of agriculture with appropriate technical guidance, and improving the marketing and agricultural forest produce, which most of the tribes are in the process of producing with the settled agriculture, with their artisan techniques, with their skills. So labs are being catered to look after particularly the assistance of or supporting finance. So these are managed by a board of directors comprising 11 members, which includes 5 directors from tribal members, 2 from any other non-tribal members, and 2 from the nominated by the Registrar of Cooperatives. To look into or there should be some composition of all members for the smooth functioning to cater to the economic needs of the tribal societies. So these LAMPs are very useful because tribal societies have different kinds of economic pursuits. Some produce, some collect, some harvest. And when these have these products, how do they market these things? How do they promote these kinds of activities? So in that sense, these multipurpose societies are catered to look after these economic pursuits. Similarly, equally important project is the Integrated Tribal Development Program, which is there in most of the scheduled tribe areas. As tribals are the integral part of this forest ecosystem, and their economy is centered around the forest resources, almost all the tribal villages are mostly enclosures located within these forest resources or forest areas. So in order to improve the productivity of the forests, which are very close or almost in the tribal settlements, so different departments of ITDP are there to monitor these activities. So the first one is the buffer zone activities. In this, it consists of income generation activities called IGA and the community development works called CW. So through CW infrastructure, the development of the village, such as providing safe drinking water supply, infrastructure like laying the roads and other necessities for a better living. So through the income generative activities IGA and with the help of self-help groups SHGs, individuals will be given loan to take up different forms of self-help employment so that they need not to wait for jobs. They can control their own income by taking this financial support from these institutions. In a way, so it reduces poverty levels. Income is generated in their own way, in their own level. With this, they also formed the Village Forest Council, also called VFCs. It is there in every village. So the microplan gives the details of the village and adjoining forest to map the resources, where is what, how, where is it situated. And the self-help groups act as an facilitator or an effective tool, particularly for the empowerment of women, where women can take control their own resources, where this is spelled over all the family members. So this microcredit system is in place to see that women can generate money by taking loans and by starting up of some small kind of petty business activities. So at least 2 self-help groups will be formed in each village project. And any member can take up to 5,000 rupees to start up their economic pursuits. All the tribal developmental programs has only one central interest. The feature is that how to empower the scheduled tribes which are in different levels of development. Some tribes are at some economic level, some other tribes are at some other economic level. And within this whole scheduled tribe population, we have almost 75 groups which are considered as particularly vulnerable tribal groups, which need more special attention to catch up with other social scheduled tribes. So taking into consideration the overall socio-economic backwardness of the scheduled tribes in the country and the principles of provisions, supports given by the Constitution, the central government is committed for the welfare and has promoted a lot of tribal welfare programs. And these tribal welfare programs are being catered whenever or wherever there is 50% above tribal population in a geographical area. And this is called as the Integrated Tribal Development Project. And there are LAMS, large scale area agricultural societies, to see that there should be some mechanism where the scheduled tribe groups can market their products, take control their own, so there is to avoid the middlemen. They can sell their own products, be it hunting, be it gathering, be it some kind of an agricultural produce or natural based products like honey or fruits, vegetables, pulses, cereals. So LAMs are there to look after, which consist of good objectives. And there are schemes for tribal youth, TRISEM. And today we have self-help groups for women. To see all these programs going on, the central government, through the special assistance, financial assistance is there, and it has been channelized through these ITDPs to cater to the needs of the tribal population in the areas of agriculture, in the areas of education, to improve the infrastructure in these facilities. The only aim is to empower these scheduled tribes to control their own lives, not to depend upon anyone. That gives an independence, the dignity, and so that they can improve an individual well-being and the overall well-being of the society in a more sustainable way by not disturbing their traditional economies.